On India Today and on India First, and we were tracking the latest developments that are taking place at the line of actual control. Remember, at the line of actual control, the situation right now is extremely fluid. India-China standoff at the line of actual control is our top focus story, because India Today now gets you clear evidence of Chinese provocation at the line of actual control. PLA soldiers armed with swords, spears and machetes at Rezang, close to Rezang, at an altitude of close to 17,000 feet above sea level, are desperate Chinese soldiers trying for yet another Galvan. A Galvan 2.0. Was that their agenda? Take a look at these images on your television screen. These are soldiers of the People's Liberation Army Ground Forces, PLA Army Ground Forces, and there you see soldiers with spears. In the 21st century, what army carries spears and swords and a machete? Weapons that were used at Galvan. I quickly want to cut across to India Today's editor defense, Abhishek Bhalla, who joins us with more. And Bhalla, Abhishek, this is what perhaps you would call in a police investigation smoking gun evidence that the Chinese soldiers had not come at this altitude for negotiations. Was a Galvan 2.0 their desperate plan after losing out on the heights south of Pengongso?
Certainly, Gaurav, there were no negotiations on their mind, if one is to go by these pictures. And once again, what is revealed is that, the barbaric and medieval mindset of an army. I mean, you will not expect a professional military force to be carrying these kind of weapons. They did so when Galwan happened on the 15th of June. And once again, it seems that the intentions were very similar when they were trying to dislodge Indian troops who were occupying and are still occupying heights in this area north of Rezang. When the Chinese troops approached the mountain tops, the Indian troops were aware of what they were trying to do. That's when they created an alarm. And then suddenly we had a situation where the Chinese resorted to firing in the air to intimidate. That did not work either. And as of now, the situation on the ground, Gaurav, is that there are still about 40 to 50 Chinese soldiers in a face-off with the Indian troops at those heights, hoping that they can dislodge Indian troops. But that's highly unlikely, because they are completely outnumbered. And the fact that the Indian army has been dominating these heights for the last 10 days now has really irked the Chinese army, and that's the reason why they've made multiple attempts to climb up these mountain tops, but they haven't got any success. But what sources say is
Abhishek, stay with me for a moment. Abhishek, I want to quickly bring in. Yes, the situation is fluid. The situation is tense. God forbid, if there is another weapon that's discharged, could the situation escalate and go out of control? We have the finest voices on matters military and diplomacy joining us on the broadcast. I have Lieutenant General Satish Dua joining us, former Chief of Integrated Defence Staff. Also with us is Ambassador Parthasarathi, Ambassador Chief Parthasarathi is former Indian High Commissioner to Pakistan, but he's also served on the China desk in the Prime Minister's office and understands China well. Executive Editor, India Today magazine, Sandeep Unithan, also with us on the broadcast. General Dua, as a soldier, your appreciation of these images of Chinese soldiers with swords, spears and machetes, what were they there for, sir?
By now, it is well known, and we have been seeing this in the news and discussions over the last 10 days or so, that Indian Army, while thwarting the Chinese troops' attempt to occupy some heights, have occupied certain heights because of which we are in a commanding position south of Pengongso Lake, on the south bank of Pengongso Lake. Now, that having been clear, in my guess, it is frustrating the Chinese forces, because suddenly at the south bank of Pengongso, we are at a very dominating, we are at the dominating heights, and we dominate Moldo camp and other logistic train of the Chinese army. Thus frustrated, what else would they do? So either they have to launch an attack to dislodge us. So what they were doing in military terms, what we do is a probing action. So they actually essentially try to probe at different places, hoping to find a gap in some heights in the rugged terrain so that they could come and occupy some height or get past. And while they're coming up,
and since they're not succeeding, will their desperation only increase, and can this lead to a shooting war at this stage, Ambassador Parthasarathy, when India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar interacts with Wang Yi, the Chinese State Councillor and Foreign Minister, on the sidelines of SCO in Moscow? In your appreciation, can we look forward to peace, or China talks peace but indulges in conflict as we've seen in the past, and that is what we should expect?
Well, let's look at things taking off from what happened today. This followed the takeover of several strategic heights by the Indian Army or south of Pangong in Ladakh. That was a severe embarrassment for the Chinese. The Indians literally sitting on their head over vast acts of territory, able to monitor their every movement. My hunch is that they therefore wanted to get this issue back live and put the blame back on the Indians. So what did they do? They organized the soldiers dressed like street gundas with carrying spears and various other instruments to try and provoke us.
Okay.
So we didn't get provoked. Yet they said we opened fire and broke the ceasefire. Now, therefore, they are diverting attention from the very fact of their failure of our takeover of the heights and turning the issue into one of us breaking the ceasefire. If you study the Global Times of the last couple of days, this was they were trying to find some way out of using us and so on, but this is the way they have taken out to throw the blame back on us. But this is a silly
but in the days to come,
this is a silly and rather dangerous.
In the days to come, do we expect tension to go higher once bullets have been discharged? And Sandeep, you've been tracking the story very closely. You've been speaking to your sources in the government. After 45 years, the first bullet was fired. Then in 1975, in Arunachal Pradesh by the Chinese troops. Now in 2020, again by the Chinese troops. Sandeep, do we apprehend an escalation on ground?
Gaurav, I can't begin to tell you how tense the situation is on the ground there from the reports that we're getting. It's a hair-trigger situation. You have troops literally a few hundred meters apart, eyeballing each other, and they all have loaded weapons. I mean, we've seen those images of the guangdaos that they're carrying, the pole arms that they're carrying, but let's not forget that all the troops on both sides have loaded weapons. And the situation is really desperate from the Chinese perspective because they have a window that's closing rapidly, Gaurav. Winter is approaching. In about 30 or 40 days, you're going to have incredible snowfall over there, and it's going to make it very difficult for them to try and recapture the heights. As Ambassador Parthasarathy mentioned, the Indian Army is literally sitting on the heads of the Chinese. The listening posts, the observation posts, the LPOPs that we've set up over there are looking right into the Chinese camps. It's overlooking the Moldo garrison. And you know very well, Gaurav, you've covered the Kargil war. You know the impact that manning the heights can make on the ground. It's a game changer. We still haven't appreciated the huge ramifications of this move by the Indian Army that's taken the Chinese completely by surprise, and it's rattled them. And they are getting increasingly desperate as winter approaches. They're trying their best to dislodge us through propaganda, through bullying, through cajoling, and then finally by what they did yesterday, which is to fire in the air and try and scare our troops away, Gaurav. So I really,
General,
the situation getting worse in the days ahead.
General, is that also your assessment that in the days and weeks to come, the situation will go from bad to worse, and that 45-year-long break in weapons being discharged. Once that's been broken, it can only go from bad to worse. And in your appreciation, can it escalate the caliber of weapon from small arms, even mortars and artillery in this sector?
Well, shots have been fired, that is for sure. Both sides are pointing fingers at each other. And like you said, it has happened for the first time after 4.5 decades. In that case, what happens next will depend on two factors. One is troops on ground. How do the soldiers react? And like Sandeep also pointed out, they are getting desperate. But on the other hand, talks and negotiations are taking place. So unless we get a breakthrough fast, there is the foreign minister's talk had been agreed to in advance. It was not one of the sudden developments like the defense minister's talk took place. And their foreign minister has a better ranking in their own hierarchy. So unless we get to some concessions very quickly, it will only then depend on the troops on ground, and we should keep our fingers crossed.
Oh, absolutely. A spark neglected can burn the house. Indian soldiers have been extremely restrained, but look at the desperation of the Chinese soldiers. And on the other side of a quick break, we will tell you in detail about the desperation of the Chinese soldiers, especially when the two brigadiers, the brigade commander on the Indian side and his counterpart on the Chinese side, when they interacted on telephone, it wasn't face-to-face today. When they interacted on telephone, what happened on ground zero? I'll get to that story and lots more on the other side of a quick break. Stay with us.
Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kamal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.